What does education mean to you?
To me, education means opportunity, the chance to learn about new things, to try new things, to go in new directions that you never expected.
Education means finding something you're passionate about and having an opportunity to polish your skills and enjoy doing it for the rest of your life.
The process by which we figure out who we can and should be.
Education is a universal right, where inclusivity and equity take center stage. Pro-Ed was born of the belief that high-quality educational expertise can transform a society for the better. We believe that education is for everyone, not only for the privileged. With these noble objectives, Pro-Ed is dedicated to offering a range of exceptional products that cater to the diverse needs of our clients and meaningful nonprofit initiatives for the community. Our comprehensive services include curriculum development, teacher training and professional development, and educational operations. We offer innovative solutions such as SCOS, a comprehensive framework for teacher evaluation and professional development. SCOS goes beyond traditional observation models by focusing on genuine student-centered practice, placing students at the true heart of teaching and learning. Complementing this framework is a curated library of video-based lessons designed to be practical, accessible, and motivating. These resources support teachers in reflecting on their practice and continuously enhancing the quality of their teaching. At Pro-Ed, our commitment goes beyond products and services. Through our CSR initiatives, we regularly provide free access to the latest and most practical educational expertise, helping promote educational equity and nurture a culture of lifelong learning in society. One of our key initiatives is the EduVerse PD platform, an open and freely accessible professional development hub for educators around the world. Today, EduVerse has grown into a global community of over 8,000 educators and followers from more than 200 countries, with engagement and collaboration increasing every day. Within EduVerse, we offer a dynamic range of professional learning platforms. EduVerse webinars, thoughtfully designed for passionate educators and led by experienced experts from around the world. EduVerse newsletters, a curated professional resource featuring insightful articles, expert interviews, emerging trends, and practical strategies to enhance teaching practice. EduVerse podcasts, the world's first educational podcast hosted by AI. Our AI hosts Liz and Andy bring fresh perspectives and engaging conversations to educators everywhere. And through our EduVerse Facebook and Instagram channels, we share cutting-edge professional resources, classroom tips, and daily inspiration to support teachers in their journey. Through our signature ELT camps and GBG training days, Pro-Ed delivers high-quality on-site training to educators across Vietnam. These collaborative programs have welcomed hundreds of participants and are highly regarded for their practical impact and excellence in professional development. In 2025, Pro-Ed and EduVerse hosted Edu 361 Expo, a pioneering 48-hour nonstop global conference. The event united 120 international experts in an immersive 3D environment, featuring workshops, AI debates, and interactive panels. Attracting thousands of participants from 100-plus countries, the Expo's 5 strategic tracks were designed to spark dialogue and reimagine the limitless future of teaching and learning. Our global network now includes over 40 respected educational organizations, many recognized as leaders in the field. These strong partnerships have been instrumental in our growth and recognition. In 2023, at the Asia Education Awards ceremony in Bangkok, Thailand, Pro-Ed was honored with 2 prestigious awards: Excellence in Educational Consultancy and Innovation in Education for our flagship framework, SCOS. Pro-Ed Education Solutions, your partner in shaping the future of education.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. If my sound is okay, please give me a thumbs up or something like that. Great, wonderful. Let's begin. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to Voices of Change Day 2. I'm Robert Stroud, editor of the University Grapevine newsletter, and I'm truly grateful that you're spending this morning, afternoon, or evening with us all here today. So, today's conversation continues on from our first roundtable discussion on Tuesday this week, and it's an extension of the journey we began in the January EduVerse newsletter, which was co-published with the University Grapevine, where educators from around the world reflected on the past 25 years of education and imagined its future. So, today's roundtable is part 2 of that discussion. A chance for us to go a bit deeper into the attention, engagement, AI, and the human classroom. And let me remind you that this isn't just a normal webinar. It's not a presentation or a one-way discussion. It's a collective pause, a moment to think together. So please be as active as you like in the chat, and enjoy taking part in a poll later on as well. We really want to hear your voice as well. So before we begin, I'd like to welcome our distinguished panelists. The first one is Professor Marina Falasca from Argentina. She is a teacher educator, researcher, and consultant in TEFL, educational technology, and global citizenship education. She lectures and supervises practicums at 2 major teacher training institutes in Buenos Aires. She is also the Star Scholars County Director in Argentina and a contributor to the Riyadh AI Coalition. So, Professor Falasca, thank you so much for joining the panel today.
Thank you, Robert. Greetings, everyone. Honored to be here today.
Thanks so much. Next on the panel today, we have Dr. Luis Javier Penton Herrera, who is based in Poland. He is an award-winning educator, best-selling author. He was the 2024 TESOL Teacher of the Year and a professor at Universitat Visa, specializing in multilingualism, identity, and trauma-informed teaching. So, Dr. Herrera, thank you so much for joining our panel today.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here, everyone.
Next, we have Annie Altamirano from Spain. Annie is a teacher trainer, materials writer, consultant with an MA in ELT and applied linguistics. She is a mentor with EVE, trainer with Pilgrims and CUPNA, and a specialist in formative assessment, differentiation, and creative multimodal learning. So thank you very much for joining us today, Annie.
Thank you for the invitation, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you.
And next on our panel today, we have Fajarudin Akbar, who is in Indonesia. He is an educator, EdTech practitioner, International English Language Teachers Association Ambassador for Indonesia, and GCE Ambassador. His research focuses on sustainable learning and teacher development, and he also kindly shares resources at mookguru.com. So, Fajarudin, thank you so much for joining our panel today.
Thank you again for having me, and good evening from Indonesia.
And last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Dinh Bao Quoc from Vietnam, who is the founder and CEO of ProEd Education Solutions. He is the academic director at VIA English Academy, head of EduVerse, creator of the famous Edu 361 Expo, author of The Art and Science of ChatGPT in Education, and he was also the 2024 LinkedIn Top Voice in Educational Leadership. Thank you so much for joining the panel today.
Thanks, Robert, for a nice introduction. And hello, everyone from everywhere.
So as you guys can see, we have a fantastic panel today. Very exciting, right? Thank you all so much for being here, joining us globally. We have a lot of people joining us from all over the world who have registered for this second panel. And a quick reminder for the audience, these roundtables work best when it's interactive. So please feel free to share your ideas and reflections in the chat. Add questions also, and we'll do our best to try and include those in the discussion today, because your voice is also obviously important to us. So, I'd like to open up the beginning now, and let me begin by telling you a bit about my own side, actually. I'm personally someone who likes to feel in control of things and be organized. And in my early years of teaching, I remember creating lots of lesson plans and games and materials for my students, putting them in a box and kind of reaching into that box each week to do my job with very little prep. It was a nice system. But I think, as everybody here knows, things can change very quickly. And every time I kind of reach back into that box, the impact of those materials would be less and less for the students I had. And I started to realize that the world is always changing, and the students we look at each week are always changing too. So I'd like to start this roundtable discussion by sharing a simple statement that I think we can all really relate to, which is that every educator I know says the same thing. Attention is different, pressure is different, and the emotional climate is different from before. So we're going to unpack this today. What is changing and what still matters for students in our classrooms and in the future? So we've got 4 sections that we're going to go through today. The first of those will be attention, engagement, and cognition today. The second one is human interaction, effort, and learning pressures. Then we're going to jump into the future. Now, part 3 there, we're going to talk about the human classroom and what it might look like in 2050. And then the final part today is my personal favorite, which is the time capsule. We're all going to write messages to 2050, and I would really like everybody to take part in that too. So let's remember that what our students feel, think, and do is an enormous part of what shapes education. And discussions like this here today are a key part in helping us understand where everything is going. So to start off, to begin, I'd like to ask each panelist to answer 2 things very quickly. No more than just a sentence or 2 is fine. Just a few words without long explanations is perfectly fine for us to start with. To look at these 2 things. One, what thing do you think has improved? And the next one, what thing do you think has become more difficult? So please remember you can put your own ideas in the chat as well, and we'll do our best to share those and comment on those. Quoc, could you please share your ideas for us first?
Okay. To me, I think one thing that has improved is the access to information. And now people and students and teachers, they can access to different sources of information. But that also makes things become more difficult. That is the information overload. So that's the answer from my side.
That's great. Thank you so much. Marina, can I ask you what you would like to share?
Sure. I think what has improved is possibility. We can design learning that crosses borders, integrates cultures, and prepares students for global citizenship in ways that we could not have imagined before. And what has become more difficult is sustaining both pace and intentionality. The speed of transformation requires us to continuously update not only our tools, but also our ways of thinking. So when everything is available, I think the real challenge is not access, but wise and purposeful selection.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Fantastic. Yeah. Luis, would you mind sharing with us, please?
Yes, absolutely. So I think one thing that has improved significantly is the diversity in teaching approaches, methodologies, but also in learning itself. We learn very differently now, and we acknowledge different ways of learning. Do you want me to go into the second one as well?
Please, yeah.
Yes. So one thing that I think has become more difficult many things, but motivation, I think, is the biggest thing right now for students and teachers. I think we don't talk enough about teacher motivation as well. It has become quite a challenge I'm seeing all over the world for both.
That's great. Yeah, and I agree about the teacher part as well. Yeah, I think that has become a big thing. Thanks so much. Annie, would you care to share with us as well, please?
Yes, I tend to agree with Kwok and Luis. Access and diversity, I think, are things that have improved. We were talking about that a few minutes before starting. We now have access not only to more resources, but also to more people. We can reach out to people all over the world, as this panel shows. But then what has become more difficult, I think it's sustained attention and the willingness to sit with not knowing something, not because the students are incapable, but the cognitive environment, I think, is noisier, faster, more competitive. And so it's more difficult for our students and also motivation for teachers. I agree with you, Luis.
Yeah, great. And me too. And I like the word competition. It does seem like that's a lot of things are, focused on that right now, don't they? Thank you so much. Fajar, could I ask you to contribute as well, please?
Yes, well, in my view, what I've witnessed, one that has been made possible, then improved significantly and quickly is the access to medium of personalization. Now we can personalize learning, which was somehow quite difficult to do, especially with the access and also with the medium that made it really, really complex and complicated. But now with the technology and the fast resources of knowledge shared, it's getting more possible to do that. However, of course, it doesn't come without flow. With more personalization, we also need to think how to sustain um, the ability to understand others to make sure that our classroom, our learners, and ourselves can still uh, avoid being trapped into our own bubbles.
It's great. Yeah, I agree. And also jumping into the chat as well, I've been looking through. We have people from all over. A lot of people, Mel, talking about critical thinking becoming more difficult, attention and focus from Havar, and some other people as well. It seems to be attention, focus, engagement, critical thinking. It seems to be something that we're all experiencing as changing in the world, isn't it? Which is actually kind of perfect. Because that will lead us into the next section, because we can see there's a tremendous amount of things are changing for students. So let's dive a bit deeper into the classrooms. So let's take a look and talk about, as I said, attention, engagement, and cognition. Things are changing. So things like noise levels, I heard people say, I think it was Annie mentioned that, pace, maybe expectations, the pressures on students, even the emotional climate, I think is constantly changing, isn't it? And I feel myself like things have gotten really fast. Folks who are a little bit older, like me, maybe, I feel a bit overloaded by the world myself now. I mean, I remember being a kid and, on Saturday morning watching cartoons, and there would be like maybe 3 or 4 channels I could choose, which to some people may sound great. Today, I think it doesn't sound like much at all. And when I was a kid, I'd just watch my show and I'd enjoy it and I wouldn't think anything of it. But now I have Netflix, which has everything. And, I'll be sat kind of watching it, but playing on Facebook and, get halfway through a show and decide, "Oh, I don't want to watch that anymore," kind of just get rid of it and do something else. So, things are really different now. So a question I have for our panel is, how have you seen attention and engagement shift? So again, please share in the chat as well, participants. We'd like to include you. And from the panel, Luis, can I ask you first, please, what you think?
Yes, absolutely. And attention is such an important topic for us teachers because we cannot really teach if we don't have students' attentions, right? So that's quite important. We also have to understand that attention, as teachers, each of us comes from a different generation, And I do think attention has been approached or understood differently throughout the different generations because of realities, because of experiences. It's generational, I do think, and I don't think we've talked enough about attention connected to generations. But specifically, I'm thinking about, for example, the population that I teach here in Poland, which tends to be teenagers slash younger adults, and they do have so much going on at the same time, and attention for them I keep trying to remember that just because of their experiences, attention to them might be what we say now short spam attention, which is maybe like 1, 2 minutes. That of course kind of motivates me or encourages me to think about instruction as something that has to be continuously engaging through activities, through even games. Teaching has to change to adapt to my student generations as well. I cannot impose on them how motivation was imposed on me or my experience in teaching and learning. So I have to think about that. But motivation has definitely been quite challenging lately. Attention, motivation, I think they go hand in hand. Engagement, all of those we can kind of put together. And as a teacher, we have to go more and more into our own reflection. What am I doing that is helping students, that is motivating them? Something that I do quite often is I talk to my students more on a personal level, so what's working for you? What I need feedback from them. So attention, engagement, motivation for me has become more of a one-on-one practice with my students where I get feedback from them. I try to talk to them and see what's working, what do they need from me. And that perhaps is something that I wouldn't have done a few years back when I was starting in my teaching career. So, Robert, I don't know if I went on a tangent here, but I hope this answers your question.
No, it's fascinating, and I agree with everything you're saying. And I also think, yeah, we need a lot more one-to-one time with students now because their needs are changing, and we need to kind of understand them a bit more, don't we? So, yeah, no, that was perfect. Thank you so much. Marina, can I ask you as well what you think about this?
Sure, I'm going to get a little more critical about it. I'm going to try and relate this to AI, which is what I've been researching for the last 2 or 3 years. I think that learning today is, spread across platforms, cultures, digital tools, which makes attention harder to sustain, like Luis said. And I feel that engagement is often shallow. Students are usually overwhelmed by constant stimuli, and they often prioritize speed and convenience over effort, especially when it comes to using AI. I think AI intensifies this dynamic. And while it can certainly support multilingual participation and reduce cognitive load, it also encourages what I call click thinking, the habit of accepting information quickly without really questioning its accuracy or engaging in deep, sustained thinking. So the challenge, I believe, is to design learning environments in ways that intentionally guide attention and foster meaningful, ethical, and transformative engagement rather than using AI to replace effort. I think we educators can and should design activities that require questioning, revision, and ethical reflection. That's what my holistic AI literacy model intends to do, and hopefully you will get to read more about it in the upcoming issue of the University Grapevine.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and yeah, click thinking is a big thing, and that the terms like that, there seems to be more and more of them, doesn't it? Things that are
I think
very
so. Yeah.
surface level. It's concerning, isn't it?
Hmm.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, Quoc, can I ask you what your thoughts are on this?
Thanks, Robert. I also think about listening to both answers. I also think about the not only technology but also the environment. I think now we are easily got distracted by the environment. I can relate it to myself, right? I remember in the past I could focus on my task much longer than now, right? And now, for example, after 5, 10 minutes, I grab my phone next to me, look at that, I go on Facebook, LinkedIn, and then put it down and go back to to the task. So I myself think that attention become more kind of fragmented over the years, right? Over the every time we have new technologies, now we have new AI, the same thing. So I think students today can process information very quickly, but they switch between tasks easily, and they scan fast, they respond fast, but staying with one idea for a longer period quite become like quite harder for them. When I observe lessons, I do not teach a lot these days, but when I observe lesson and I talk to teachers, I often notice that students can respond quickly to short tasks. One question, two questions, they can do it pretty well. But when we ask them to do tasks that require sustained thinking, for example, working through a complex problem, reading a longer text, or developing an idea in writing, you can feel the cognitive effort increase, right? And teachers sometimes tell me they lose focus so quickly. But when we unpack it during training session, we often realize that students are not incapable of focusing. They are just less used to staying with one idea for a longer stretch without stimulation or changes. So I think that because of the yes, of course, technology and also the environment. Yeah, that's my idea.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we're all kind of feeling something similar here. It's kind of they're being pulled in so many different directions that it's difficult for them to stay in one place. And I was looking at the chat as well. Lin Feng, who's a friend of most of us here, I think we all know her. She's added a really interesting comment. Thanks, Lin. Said she listened to a podcast between a historian and a psychologist. Their conclusion is that it's biological and that our attention hasn't gotten worse. We just pay attention to different things now, and motivation of what to focus on is an important issue. So, yeah, we're just kind of in this cloud of things for students to focus on. I think that's definitely an issue. And there was another one here from Nani. Thank you so much, saying that student attention has shifted from traditional to passive lecture-based models to heightened need for active and interactive learning experience. So, yeah, again, we're asking them to do different things now, aren't we? And the world around them is as well, I guess. So, I'd like to open this up to the panel as well. If anybody else would like to contribute, Annie or Fajar, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, yeah, Fajar, please go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I would like to start with a confession because this question might be related to my generation as an early generation Z myself. So I went to high school not so long ago, and actually I totally agree with Lynn to what she mentioned about attention is not actually absent; it's fragmented with the diversity of teaching methodology, teaching techniques in the modern classroom. We have like again, refer back to personalization, differentiation, and then somehow it turns out that there are things that fragment or make this attention refracted. So not that we don't have a focus, not that we don't have the attention. It's just that we need to pay attention to more things than we had to do. So somehow maybe there could be a washback, a negative washback to that we are used to working or let's say studying simultaneously, multitask, multi-work to a lot of things. And then it turns out it gives us a more sense of, okay, doing one thing alone is somehow doesn't feel comfortable. I need to do more things at once. So that's what I've seen so far and in my experience.
Yeah. And Annie, would you like to add something to that?
Yes, I totally agree with you, Fajar. I mean, I think that attention is not weaker, it's just fragmented, more fragmented. Because young people, and I sometimes feel the same about myself when I usually work here in my office with 3 screens, and sometimes I have 3 different things going on each screen, and I'm paying attention to different things at the same time. So, and much more so with young people. I see that with young trainees and with my my own children who are adults, but they are young. I, I mean, students can, I think that they can hyper focus on different things. They are fast, they can play short videos, play fast games that, I mean, I have tried and I really get lost with that. And it's too much for me, maybe because I don't care about games. But um, the challenge, I think, is transferring that focus to slower activities, activities that are more cognitively demanding. Yes, like extended reading, writing, for example, without, you see, I have my own mobile phone here, and as I think that Dinh Bao Quoc, I think you mentioned that you are working and you have your social media. Or me too, and sometimes I think, hey, what am I doing? um, so I think that the capacity is there, yes, but the habit is not there. So they have to, because at some point I say, okay, I switch to flight mode and I forget about social media and I concentrate on what I have to concentrate. Uh, but I think that that is a habit that perhaps the younger generations uh, need to learn, perhaps learn again.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree too. It's fascinating just watching younger people now just multitasking and doing the videos on high speed as well. Like when they watch something on YouTube, they put it on double speed. I'm like, I can't understand what's happening, but their brain seems to be able to keep up with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like
I,
to move us
I,
along. Oh, sorry, Quoc, would you like to add
yeah,
something?
I just like to add
Hmm.
one more thing. I saw Fajar's comment on chat box. It made me smile. They seem to be guilty, feeling focusing on working on only one thing, right?
Mm.
I think we are very fast these days. We are always multitasking, right? But there's one more thing I'd like to add. For question number one, that is about, not only the task, not only other focuses, but also the heavier emotional load that students having these days, right? I think now we talk a lot about the human touch or the human interaction in the times of AI, and a lot of us we pay more attention to students. Uh, they seem that they carry more than what we did in the past, right? Now they have like social media pressure, constant comparison, global uncertainty, and a non-stop flow of information. So when even they are there in the classroom, physically there, but mentally they may still be processing something, emotionally. So I think sometimes what looks like lack of attention is actually a mental fatigue, or something that is very heavy in their mind emotionally. So that's something I like to add. Why attention or engagement these days feel like fragmented.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a really good point as well.
Mm.
And I think things like student stress and well-being and that word techno stress is coming back into research a lot now.
Mm.
Is a real thing, isn't it? So that's thanks for adding that. I think that really is something we could think about more. Um, okay, thank you to the panel. At this point, I'd like to just move us along to the next part. I think we can all understand a lot of things are changing. We're trying to understand our students very well. And the next part is going to be about what kind of pressures they have and what kind of challenges they face. So I'd actually like to open up a poll to everyone in our audience today. So I'm going to just set a poll for you to answer, if I can find where that is. Just give me a moment. Here it is. And it will should appear on your screen. And the question is, which challenge most affects your students' learning today? So you should see that on your screen now. And there are a few different options. Please take your time. We'll have quiet time for a minute or two. I
I
would
think
really love it. Can you see it okay?
Robert, I cannot choose. I don't know if it's
I
only
don't think the
me.
panelists can choose,
Yeah,
actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
we don't
okay.
get to
Sorry.
choose. We get to discuss.
Yeah. And it's in the question is also in the chat as well now. So people in the audience participants today, are you able to choose? I'm not getting any
It
response.
seems like it says the poll is not working. Not working.
Oh yeah, turns out it's
oh,
for
you have
everyone.
to
Let me try again.
relaunch that,
Yeah, and I'll try it
Robert.
again.
Yeah.
Here we go. The wonders of technology. I have maybe just two things to focus on, and I'm already okay. Actually, I have to go right back from the beginning. Relaunch. Okay. How about now? That's working. Okay, here we go. Success. So if everyone in the audience could please just take a moment and just choose what you think is possibly the biggest challenge for the learning for your students at the moment.
And Robert, if I may add, while we wait, I think these are
Sure.
also great options for teachers as well. I'm always thinking about teachers as well,
Sure.
but it applies quite easily to teachers just as much, I think.
Great point. Absolutely. I mean, that could be a whole other panel, couldn't it? I mean, how are we doing? So I'll give our participants maybe another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll quickly have a look at what everyone thought. Oh, okay, I think we're almost done. A few more. Okay, about another 10 seconds maybe, if you would like to share, if you want to cast a vote. Okay, let's take a quick look together then. So, can everyone see the results there? So
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
Great, interesting. I believe the top answer is digital distraction and fatigue. Okay, wow, so that's 28% of the votes. Rising mental health stress is very close as number 2. And cognitive overload from information, kind of close, number 3. And then also we have intense academic performance, things like exams. Social pressure, not so much of a thing in this. And perhaps there are other things as well, but it appears that a lot of it seems to be kind of what we've been discussing, doesn't it? You know, overload and distraction and things like that. Is there anyone on the panel who'd like to comment or add anything about this?
If I may, I think that is my personal choice was rising mental health stress and social pressure. I think that rising mental health stress derives from social pressure because I feel it has intensified in this century, perhaps. I compare it to my younger days where we had, of course, lots of social pressure, but it wasn't the same kind. I mean, we have social media, but it's much more than that because they are navigating in a world where they have um, these ideal or curated versions of success constantly bombarding them. We have those reels on different social media platforms that show really successful young people, influencers who make everything look so easy, certain And I think this is at least this is my experience here in Spain. These models of body perfection, everybody's beautiful, everybody's slim, and that affects, and Luis, I agree with you, that affects us teachers too, because after all, we are human beings and we are affected by that. But perhaps our students are more sensitive to those influences and more vulnerable to those influences. That social pressure, also the fear of judgment, peer comparison, being afraid, and this ties to participation. They have become very strategic about when and how they engage because they are calculating risk constantly. If I answer this question, what will the reaction of my peers be? What will people think? If I am wrong, will this make me lose face in front of my peers? And this, not just at adolescents, but also with young adults, this is really seriously affecting mental health. And in my view, these are the two most important. Yes, there is cognitive overload from information, digital distraction, etc. But I think that at least here in Spain, I think that the two most prominent challenges are social pressure, which derives in rising mental health stress.
Robert, if I may add, thank you, Annie, for that comment. But Robert, if I may add to what Annie mentioned. Thank you. So, Annie, thank you for sharing that. And, I was actually thinking about social pressure, and I was wondering, are we thinking about social pressure as in real life human being interaction or digital? This is a new reality also, right? When we think about social pressure, also happens in digital spaces. I don't know if any of you has had the pleasure of working, for example, with students who, many of my students here in Poland, they say that they tell me, I'm learning from them, they're influencers or they're content creators in social media. And this is also as teachers, I have to now start thinking about, and I have been, and thankfully I have this space in my university where I can kind of tweak a little bit some of the assignments that I do to be able to also help them engage, feel motivated. And I tell them many times, I teach English and Spanish at my university here in Poland. And sometimes when we do final projects, instead of just doing a final oral exam where I ask questions and answers, we create content. And then I tell them, you can, if you like, you can create content that you can actually upload in your social media platforms, and that could be part of your content as well. That really motivates them. But there's also a social pressure element connected to it because they're influencers, they're content creators. So they're not just students anymore. They're learning languages for a specific purpose, which is to connect with people, to create content. So this is a really different reality for teachers because now we have to think about, I'm not only just teaching language, I'm teaching language for my students whose purpose is to create content in this language. Completely different reality. I mean, if I would have told younger Luis 10 years ago when I was starting teaching, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, Luis, you're going to be teaching influencers. First, I had no idea what influencers would be, right? So, and secondly, I'm just thinking about more and more, what can I do to really capture my students' attention and help them with everything that they're dealing with, because at the end of the day we're teaching students to learn a language for whatever purpose. It's not for our future but for their future, and if their future is that they want to create content in that language, they're influencers in that language, that's what I have to focus my instruction on that purpose, right? So that's a lot of also social pressure for teachers as well to think about that. Thank you, Annie, for that comment.
Thanks, Luis. Yeah, and I agree with both of you as well. It's a whole much more connected world, and some of the comments in the chat as well. A lot of people are agreeing. Elizabeth, thank you. She said she also felt it was the top one, and social pressure, and everybody talking about them. Yeah, just feeling a lot of social and peer pressure. So thank you so much for the participants. And maybe that's a bigger thing than we thought. Maybe some people. So yeah, very, very interesting. I'd like to move us along now, if I may, to the next section. And now we're going to, move along and talk a bit more specifically about the interactions that go on in the classroom. How students might view their relationships with others, and how confident they may or may not feel to engage with the people around them, which may be changing a lot or different for them as it is us. So, to make a really clear comparison, um, just for a second, imagine a classroom where none of the students had ever even owned a phone, or they didn't know what the internet was or what AI was. I mean, it's pretty hard to imagine, but what would be different from what we see today with our own students? So, the question I'd like to give to the panel to dive into that would be, students today face new pressures: emotional, cognitive, social, technological, all of these things we just kind of discussed. How do these pressures shape their participation and their confidence and their thinking? And again, please add to the chat if you have your own thoughts or questions about this. Annie, can I go to you first, please, about your thoughts on this?
Yes, I think that a student, a trainee, uh, I was talking to recently said that she had spent some time, quite some time, working on a paper. And she said, okay, I spent, say, 3 hours working on this paper, but ChatGPT could have done this in 3 minutes. So what's the point? And she wasn't asking me about the essay itself. She was asking me, I think, about her own effort. What was the point of making the effort to do it? It was her own human struggle to make meaning. I think that that this is something we need to look at, and we need to. I mean, I'm always thinking. I myself, I use AI for very practical things, but and I'm not against AI, of course. It's here, we use it, and we have been using without knowing, we have been using it for a long time. Only that now we are using certain specific tools for generating content, for example. But um, but I am more worried about the human aspect of our students and how to um, teach them to ethically use technology and to ethically use AI, for example, and how this is affecting their own perception of themselves as humans. Maybe I'm digressing, but that's what I remembered right now, and that what comes up immediately. I don't know if my colleagues here have an opinion here. Maybe
No,
you're much younger than me, so maybe your vision of the whole thing about technology is different.
I think the effort thing that you mentioned, Danny, is incredibly important as well. And I mean, for us as well, any age, I think, if you suddenly have this tool that can do things for you, um, I think the good thing about that is it gets you to think about the purpose a lot more quickly and sharply. Like, do I really have a reason to do this or not? And sometimes if it's just like a report for your teacher, I mean, where is the motivation? So that's something, you have to work with in your design, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Fajar, can I ask you what you think about this?
Could you somehow repeat the question? Is it about the imagine the world without mobile phone one, or which one?
Well, really, we're just talking about what kind of, so how do the pressures we're putting on students shape their participation, their confidence, or the way they think, or their efforts in class? So the pressures that we talked about before, like, the social things, the technological things, those things in the poll that we looked at. What kind of impact do you think they have on things like the way they want to take part or not, and how they think?
Okay, actually, I would like to talk about the access to resources. Like now we have, I can say that in this world now, we have everything that we need in terms of, let's say, somehow knowledge. Everything is available on the internet, on your hand. With that fact, however, many still don't know many things. And many just feel that they don't have access to those things, which is the contrary. Again, while everything is available, it feels like we just cannot, reach those things, which I believe it becomes more and more uncertainty for learners to actually know what they need to do and what they need to pursue in terms of the future that they might think they wouldn't have. Or let's say whether the future is actually the future or the future is just tomorrow or the future is just later today. And the pressure through social media and everything that they see, as Annie has mentioned, and also Lewis, about this flex from influencers and these great people at making contents on the internet makes things feel so easy, and it gives more pressure and burden to those who unfortunately maybe just don't have the time or yet the ability to do them feels more incapable of doing anything. So I think it's about the gaps between what you know and what you don't know. It just becomes bigger, especially for younger people. While now they are faced with everything in the world. So back in the day, we need to search for those things. We need to study into a higher level of education, even to PhD, or even postdoctorate in order to get those level of knowledge. Now they have everything in their face, on their phone, well, one click away, one tap away. But again, it let's say widen the gaps of those who don't know and those who might think they know, and the things that they can know or should know. So I think the pressure keeps adding with the fact that, again, now we have an entity which is not human, which is in technology itself, that can do better, a lot of things better than most teenagers or most younger learners. And then, I can refer back to the question, like, do they actually need to learn this? Because there is another thing that can do this faster and better. And do they need to be able to do this in the future if there is another thing that can do it now or even better in the future? So I think slow thinking and then getting to know why we need to learn this, maybe not practically, but into the metacognition that, okay, I only need to do this because I need the process of thinking of doing this. It's not about the practicality, but how I can keep myself using my brain or using my mind to be self-aware and also present in my own world. I think so far a bit complicated somehow, I know.
It's fascinating though, isn't it? And I do agree as well. And I think students are really struggling to know what learning is anymore. Like you said, if they've got this flood of information that's just, they could never keep up with, what is their purpose and how do they compete with the world? And I think that's really affected their confidence. I think they don't, I mean, it used to be a lot simpler what it was to study, didn't it? I think. So thanks a lot for sharing.
Yeah. Sorry for
Who-
jumping in here
Go.
because
Yeah, please.
because Annie's and Fajar's mentioned the availability of the answers online or with AI remind us about what we discussed last time about struggle about student, and that make a kind of invisible pressure on student. They don't know how learning really is, right? There's no struggle, no learning actually. When the answer is just a click away or a prompt away, so no learning anymore, right? And this is a kind of pressure that I like to remind us because we did mention that this in the last session. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
remember.
but
Yeah.
I mean,
And
struggle
go ahead,
is part
Marina.
of learning, right? Struggle is part of learning, and I think that's what we need to protect. And if we
Mm.
want students to learn, they need to face challenges. They need to write more than one draft, and I think that's what we're losing, and that's what we need
Mm.
to preserve, right?
That's right. Yeah. Mm.
That was the word that came up on Tuesday as well in the first roundtable. A lot struggle, and it's coming up again here. That beautiful word of making students think, isn't it? So, Luis, is there anything you'd like to add as well?
Yes, and thank you for this conversation, this question. See, I was when I heard the question and the conversation that we're having, I went back to, some of you may know that I'm originally from Cuba, so my family and I were political refugees. When I arrived in the US at 17, the educational system in the US, in Cuba, was quite behind in early 2000s, much more now. But that was the first time I had ever seen a computer in my life. I did not even know how to turn it on. I started crying when I saw a computer in front of me. I'm like, how do I turn this on? It was kind of like a, like technology, and everything scared me so much. And I do remember vividly many teachers were very forcefully against including computers in the classroom. And I look back as a student now, and it took me a long time to become techie, because of course I was afraid of technology and all of these things. But then can you imagine now, 2026? I cannot imagine Luis without knowing how to use technology, you know. And I go back to what I tell my students from day one. And I tell this to my students in Poland. I have the opportunity, fantastic opportunity, to work with teachers in Uzbekistan as well. And I tell them, I have zero problems with you using AI because I'm educating you for your future, not mine. So your future, AI is going to be ever present. It is ever present now. So in their future, AI, they have to have AI literacy. That's a non-negotiable. And I have many colleagues that I disagree with them very respectfully, but they say no AI in my classroom. It's not your future, it's the student's future. We need to prioritize their future. If they're, imagine if I did not become literate in my technology, I remember again, just looking at those very old computers, and I was terrified of that. But thankfully I started slowly learning how to use it, because if you don't know how to use computers today, I think of my mom, for example, my family, many of them don't know how to use computers. They're very behind. Do we consider them literate in today's world? I don't know. It will be, I think, kind of similar with AI. So, what does that mean for engagement? Well, and this is why I very much always talk about social emotional learning, and I'm very passionate about it. As we become more AI literate in our life, it is a tool, same as technology with computers and everything else, calculators. I think old enough to remember this whole debate about not using calculators. And, if we don't teach students how to use AI from a human mindset, going back to motivation, and I always tell them from day one, my students, what is your anchor? What is your why? I strongly believe in finding your why for everything in life, especially for language learning. Why are you learning language learning, or this particular language? If they don't have a why, that's perfectly fine. Let's find it. We have to find it together. We can find it together. Um, but we have to find your why. That's your social emotional aspect, your human aspect, and then bring technology into the equation, and then that becomes a much better process, I think. I don't think we should ask students to give up technology. We should just help them increase their humanity, if we can call it that way, become more human as they use technology for better language teaching and learning. And that's something that we're still trying to navigate as language teachers, because this is happening to us right now. We're kind of riding the wave. We still don't know how to use it. So some people might call it ethical use. Some people might call it humane approach to AI. However we want to call it, right? But we have to, I think, marry both social emotional learning, emotional intelligence at the end of the day, and AI usage. That's the most important.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I think the way you're mentioning that, yeah, we need to look to what world they're going to be joining afterwards. Yeah, like so marrying those things together is really important. I think we've forgotten when we've been in the depths of figuring out AI that what are they going to have a life like? What is the world going to be like in, say, 10, 20 years from now? So how are we preparing them? Do they know what they're preparing for? It's a really important thing. So thanks so much. And the chat is really on fire at the minute. And I think Fajar is definitely showing that you are the younger on the panel because you're multitasking, speaking with us and typing. I can't keep up with that. But yeah, some really great comments coming in there with what we're talking about. I'm sorry we don't have so much time to address them all, but please do keep typing things in there and we'll do our best to bring those into the discussion if we can. Thank you so much. I think it would be okay if I move us along to the next section, which I'm really excited about. This is going to be talking about the human classroom in 2050. So we're going to kind of jump into the future now, which I always enjoy doing. So I'd like you to look forward and just imagine it is 2050 and we're stood in a classroom and we're taking a look around. Of course, you're going to see things going on that are probably very different from right now, from today, 2026. But maybe you're going to see some things that don't look so different. Maybe some things have just kind of stayed the same. Maybe the technology, we can't even imagine what would happen. Who knows what's going to happen? Or even what the people look like or how they talk to each other, how they sound, who knows? But I think that education has a backbone, something that we will always be there from thousands of years ago to a very long time from now. I think there's things about us as humans that should always be there in a classroom. So that would lead me to my next question for the panel, which is what will still matter in a classroom 25 years from now? So, what human elements do you think survive every wave of innovation, policy change, and cultural shift? So, that kind of backbone I'm talking about. What things do you think will still be there and should matter? Quoc, can I start with you, please? What are your thoughts on this?
So that is a question about the future, right? And we don't
Mm.
know the future yet.
Mm.
It's a little difficult. These days, when talking about education these days, people are more about, stepping back a bit. When technology and AI suddenly goes so fast, right? So we stand back a bit and thinking about, like you said, the backbone of education. And to me, I think that is, the human and human interaction or human elements. So if you ask me, I'm sure in 2050, right, the technology will look completely different. So maybe AI will support every lesson, maybe information will be more instant and immersive. But two things in my mind will still matter. So the first one is emotional safety. No matter how advanced the tools become, students will still need to feel safe to learn, feel safe to speak or to question, or even feel safe to be wrong, right? From what I see in the classroom observation, when students feel emotionally safe, they participate more. They take more risks, they take more try. But when they don't, even the best design lesson, I think, will fail. So technology can deliver content, can support with the teaching and learning, but it cannot replace the feeling of being respected or feeling being heard or being understood. And the second thing is curiosity. I think all of us agree that curiosity is the kind of the fuel, the engine of learning. Without curiosity, people will not learn. So it's what makes the student, learn and like even today's fast-moving world, when a teacher sparks real curiosity, like a strong question or a meaningful problem or real-world connection, we see the attention changes immediately. So in 2025, I think that will be the same. Information will be everywhere, but curiosity will still determine whether students actually engage with the information they have. Right. So for me, two things: emotional safety and curiosity will survive. in
I really
2020.
like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I love that. I
Mm.
love that word curiosity too, because it's just you can never really take it away, can you? And if you've got
Yeah.
the right environment, people will be curious. Everyone wants to learn. That's our DNA, isn't it? So thank you so much. Marina, can I ask you what you think about this as well?
Sure. Yeah. I was going to say that curiosity will hopefully be there. And I think we have a big part to play in that if we want curiosity to stay with kids or teenagers or adult learners, we need to also change our teaching methods and make sure that they adapt and constantly adapt to the changes. But one human quality that I hope will still matter, and and this is also something that I've been trying to champion for the last few years, is analytical judgment or discernment, not just knowing information like Quoc said, but judging what's important, what's ethical, what's trustworthy. In a world where answers are everywhere, like we said, I think wisdom sets learners apart. Answers are easy to find, but wisdom is not. So I'm hoping that you know, classroom rituals like real-time dialogue where the unscripted, messy exchange prevails, students thinking out loud, build on each other's ideas. I hope all of that will still take place. And also that space of productive pause. I think it's important to give the students time to pause, think, hesitate, and build meaning collectively. Um, Personalization, contextualization, and human revision are also essential. I hope all of that will stay and be part of classrooms 25 years from now.
That's great. Wonderful. Thank you. I love that term pause, time to pause as well. I think that's, yeah. I mean, like we talked about earlier, the things getting faster and, the pace of learning. So yeah, I hope that will be there too as well. Are there
Robert,
any
may
other
I?
panelists, Luis?
Thank you, and thank you to both of you for sharing that. You made me think, and specifically 2050. This might be a little bit sci-fi, but here we go. This is the exploration that we're doing, right? So I was thinking of two important words when we think about the future. The first one, specifically because of the way that education is still following perhaps 18th, 1900 style. When we think of classroom, the word teacher, classroom meaning learning happens in a room, enclosed, and we know that that's not the reality anymore. And perhaps I'm thinking like different words of how we could explore 2050 and how it should look like, and perhaps more. And Quoc was making this connection with curiosity and exploration, and I think it maybe like exploratoriums would be quite nice when it comes to, instead of classrooms, because really in 2050 I hope learning won't just be thought of as an enclosed activity anymore. It's just a space where you explore. But then that also changes teachers, because we're not teaching, even though many of us we're realizing that our the practice that we do, what we do in our classrooms every day, is shifting slowly. We're not teachers per se, in the sense that we are not the only ones who hold the power or the knowledge anymore, and the textbooks are not the only ones where student or the only place where students can access information anymore. That used to be the case before, right? So teachers were becoming more and more facilitators, and I'm thinking towards the 2050 or plus, in a few years. I think in a few years, more and more will become more of a, perhaps even designers, learning designers, which I think there has been some conversations about the changing the name from teachers to designers, because we are designing learning. But I don't think teaching and learning will be so much about this is the information that you have to learn anymore, but about giving students the space, going back to Marina and Quoc's message here, giving students the space to really explore different topics that especially spark their curiosity and go deeper into those topics. The thing I'm seeing more and more in many school spaces nowadays is that if you keep teaching to a specific curriculum, then you're turning students into very proficient machines, like this is the knowledge that you know and that's it. And but what about everything else? And many school systems are so behind that they're not even including different types of literacies that students need to be able to do nowadays to interact with the world. Visual literacies, specifically, for example, AI literacies, technological literacies, many of them are still. I talk about emotional literacy, and I talk to my students all the time, especially language teachers. If we don't know how we feel as language teachers, we don't know how emotions affect our communication, then we're not effective communicators, right? So we have to be aware of these things. But many school systems still don't talk about this, right? So I'm thinking, I hope 2050 would just more than anything see education as an open process that happens everywhere, really, not just in a classroom, but everywhere. I don't know, Robert, I think I went on a, tangent here. I tend to do that quite often, but I hope I answer your question here.
No, it was brilliant, and yeah, I liked how you talked about the way the classroom might be a different kind of thing, and the traditional classroom it certainly should never just stay that way forever, right? Fajar, is there something you wanted to add?
Yes, this might sound a little bit uncreative, but this is what I've been instilling myself and also my students, and also some anecdotes out there in the future. Well, not even the future, but 2050 so far. Well, not that so far. I might be there somehow sooner. Uh, um, the elements of humans that we want to have now and even in the future is to be a human. As simple as that, in my opinion. The fact that we want ChatGPT writing to sound like human shows the fact that we love human even more, and we want to make those robots sounds like human. We want to have that human feeling from those robots. Well, I think like 2 years ago there have been this advertisement. There was this advertisement like hire robots, hire AI, stop hiring human, and so forth. Now I've seen more new trends in hire humans, and even like service which they showcase and they're proud that they say they serve human service. Like, okay, we have humans because we know. In my opinion, in my view, we have talked a lot about technology and AI from the perspective of providers, but somehow we forget the perspective of the users. As let's say in education, students. Well, I wouldn't deny it's undeniable somehow AI or those robots can have all the knowledge in this world way better than me. But the question is, would my student want to learn from them? That's the thing. Somehow I see that these developers and those who develop these robots and AI, they might underestimate the motivation that learners, especially younger students, have in learning, that they believe robot can just deliver them knowledge, while it's about how they receive those knowledge from someone they look up to, which is us, humans. So that's my view.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, and a lot of the chat as well is agreeing with this. I mean, we have some different comments in there, but thank you so much for the participants or your viewpoints. But a lot of the same words keep coming up: human connections, collaboration, emotions. So it does seem like, yeah, the human really is the center, hopefully, of the classes in 25 years. Annie, did you want to add something?
Yes, I would like to add that I think that a human quality that I hope will still matter is intellectual courage. And that is the courage to think differently, to accept uncertainty and to express a different opinion from the mainstream, and also judgment, that is genuine commitment to integrity. Yes, the ability to evaluate information, detect bias, choose wisely, and act with integrity. And a third thing that I think is, and it has been mentioned also in a way, is the will to include. That is something that no algorithm, no technology can generate, And it is the genuine commitment of seeing each of our students as fully human, with a history, with a culture, with an identity, and the right to be heard and the right to be reflected in what happens in the classroom.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that's a very good way for us to finish this section, actually, because it's just a beautiful way to, imagine what we want to see with those students as well. Thank you, Annie. And that leads us into the final main part of this round table, which is my personal favorite. This is the time capsule, which will be a message to people in 2050. So today we've had a great discussion about students living in 2026 and the future, a world that we wouldn't have imagined could have happened at the turn of this century. Things are changing every year, and the students we work with always keep changing too. They never stay the same. So before we close today's roundtable, I'd like us to pause and do something intentional. We'll leave something for the future. So this is our special moment in the Voices of Change Roundtable. This is the time capsule activity. So everyone, please imagine students in 2050 looking back at this very moment, and they may look back at this period and ask, what did they do the same as us? And what did they do differently? So today we're creating a message for those future students. So in the chat, you should see a link very shortly to a short form titled Voices of Change, Day 2, the Time Capsule. And we invite you to reflect on just 2 prompts. The first of those prompts will be one timeless skill, and the second one will be one classroom ritual worth preserving. So number one timeless skill, something you think is always important. And number 2, a class ritual worth preserving. What's something that we should always hold on to? Please be specific. Please don't just give general ideas. Be clear and give advice, if you will, to the future generations. And panelists, can I please ask you to write down 2 to 3 sentences for each prompt? And I invite all the panelists to contribute to the time capsule as well in the chat with the link. And you can also write it directly in the chat if you're comfortable too. So the next 5 minutes, we're going to have a quiet reflection moment. So let's take those 5 minutes to write our messages to the students of the future. Let's please do that now. this up in about 1 more minute, so if you're still finishing your thoughts, please submit them when you're ready. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for your contributions. I would love to hear from the panelists. If you could just quickly share just your 2 or 3 sentences. You don't need to explain it in any great depth of what you would like to contribute. That would be great. Can I start with Luis? What did you decide to contribute?
Absolutely. So for number 1, I wrote, a timeless skill that will remain essential is emotional intelligence, specifically the ability to recognize, regulate, and respond to our own emotions and the emotions of others. Regardless of how of technological advances or systemic changes, the capacity to understand ourselves, communicate with empathy, and navigate interpersonal relationships will always be fundamental to personal and professional success. And for number 2, I said prioritizing strong teacher-student relationships. No matter how technology evolves, learning will always depend on trust, connection, safety, and a sense of belonging in the learning space.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That's great. Fajar, can I ask you what you decided to write?
Okay, for me, the first one is the ability to empathize and understand what matters most for humanity and for learning as a human. Again, in the world where we have products created very fast, quickly, and instantly, so it's about the process, which is learning as a human. And for the second one, I believe the ritual that we need to preserve in the classroom, especially, is to reflect on what we have done in learning, what we have been doing, and what we will do to keep learning. Again, learning for learning's sake, in my opinion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Annie, can I ask you what you decided to do?
Yes, basically what I said before is the human quality that I hope will still matter. I was very brief. Was intellectual courage, the courage to think differently and to speak out loud for your rights. And the other was the classroom ritual was preserving, right? Yes, and it was the commitment to diversity, to respecting our students with their history, their culture, their identity, and their right to be reflected in what happens in the classroom.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Marina, what are you putting inside the time capsule?
Yeah, I wrote an important timeless skill is the ability to ask meaningful questions. Like we said, information changes, tools evolve, but the capacity to frame powerful questions drives learning forward and hopefully will continue to drive learning forward. One classroom ritual worth preserving is metacognition, instances where the students reflect on how and why they learn. I think it's important to protect spaces for reflection in this fast paced and changing world. And one human quality technology must never replace, and I hope will never be replaced, is intellectual humility, the willingness to say, I don't know, to revise one's thinking and to remain open to growth.
Wonderful. Humility. I love that. That's great. Thank you so much. Quoc, do you have something you would like to put in the capsule as well?
Yes, I went back to basic. So one timeless skill, I put in critical thinking. Um, the ability to ask, meaningful, thoughtful questions, open-ended questions, and stay with a problem long enough before looking for an answer. So that is number one. And one classroom ritual worth preserving. I think I agree with Luis. I think human connection. Begin each week with a live face-to-face circle discussion where every student speak once, no devices, just listening and responding to each other. So that is a ritual I would like them to reserve for the future.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And my two are very similar to everybody's in a way. I think that the timeless skill is the critical thinking. It's the time to sit down and really think over things and kind of have that humility and that failure. It's okay to fail because that's how we learn. That's how we really remember things. And the classroom ritual, very similar too. Talk to people. Don't forget you've got humans there because you're not just learning a subject, you're learning how to communicate for the future world. And there's a lot of times we forget how important that is just to talk to a teacher or a classmate. So thank you so much. And I've just been looking through a lot of the results. I won't read out any names, of course, from our audience as well today. So timeless skill, emotional intelligence, pronunciation is quite an interesting one. Lots of critical thinking in there. Technology has come up a couple of times. Respect, I quite like. A lot of people have put that in. Um, and moving on to number two, the ritual. These are quite long answers. I'll try to choose some of the shorter ones. Uh, Emotional intelligence again, things like that, just development of skills between people in the room. Um, Also, things like traditions comes up a lot. That word tradition, I'm not sure, but a few people have said that. Face-to-face interactions as well. So it sounds very similar to the panel as well, actually, what a lot of people are thinking and putting into the time capsule for us. So thank you so much for all those contributions. Um, these messages will not disappear after today. We will compile them into a digital Voices of Change time capsule booklet, and we'll create a visual word cloud that captures the most powerful themes. And both will be shared in upcoming newsletters for EduVerse and University Grapevine. I want to thank everyone for attending and sharing your voices today. And I'd like to leave you all with this thought. If 2025 students could hear us now, I hope they'd feel one thing, that we believed in them enough to shape a future where learning stays deeply, beautifully human. And I think the flow of the discussion today has really, really matched that, hasn't it? Thank you to all our panelists. And before anyone goes, if you missed the first roundtable that we had on Tuesday, recordings for both panels will appear on the EduVerse website, so you can catch them there. And you can also receive your participation certificate by following instructions that will be emailed to you a little bit later on. And finally, don't forget you can subscribe to both of the newsletters, EduVerse and the University Grapevine. These newsletters are spaces for reflection, global voices, practical insights, and teaching practices and tips. They're both completely free for all teachers and educators. You can scan the QR codes on the screen, or in the chat right now, I believe that a couple of links have been added. So they are free, as I said, so I recommend you follow.